Hello, welcome everyone to today's podcast, The Engineer Whisperer. I have to tell you that I'm a little bit nervous today being here with my guest and very grateful. I have known him, just figured out the years, for over 17 years. It's been an honor, a pleasure. I can't really put it in words how many gifts he gave me. Howard, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate it. It's great to be with you. 17 years goes by fast, doesn't it?
It does, it does. And I wanted to invite you here today because when I met you, I was a beginner in learning. So let me create some context for those who are watching. I was still a UW, a student at the business school. I kind of had an idea of where I want to go and what do I want to be when I grow up. But when I met you, and I met you because you talked about your book. You gave it was a discussion, and you brought the book, and then I got the book, and those who found the book under their chair, you were kind enough to sign mine. So I also have a signature, and in that moment, I took the courage to ask you if I can meet you again. And that started a wonderful mentorship between us. And why I wanted to invite you here today is what you gave me. I kind of had an idea of where I wanted to go, but I didn't know who I wanted to be in the business world. And that's what you helped me with. So today I would like to unpack those. You have been, I know, mentoring many, many people. You have been in the business for over 50 years. And you have actually two books, this one and the Fill My Cup. So today I want to give you the mic to share some of the wisdom with us. And where I would like to start is with one of my favorite um, sayings that come from you. And I always picture you when I remember this. The person who sweeps the floor should choose the broom.
Right. So you want to know where that came from?
Yes.
Before I went to Starbucks, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, and I decided was going to buy a company. And I'd made this list of all the things I wanted in this company and how I wanted to lead the organization. And one of the things that I wanted to do is make sure that everybody had a right to vote. That if I was willing to bring them into the company or the organization that I was leading, then they had to have input on how the place was run. And so I had this saying that everybody got to vote in their own areas of expertise. When I got to Starbucks, I thought I needed something better than that, that was more relatable to the people. And so I came up with this term trying to convince everybody that everybody we hired was worthwhile and they had a contribution to make. And I came up with the idea the person who sweeps the floor should choose the broom. And I truly mean that. We're talking about, floor sweepers, but anything, you know,
Yes.
go out and hire an engineer to come in the company to do some work, then who knows more about their work than they do? Nobody. I may know more about the organization's values, and the greater purpose of the organization. And my job is to explain that to somebody new coming to the organization. But then my job is to get out of their way. Once they know what their responsibilities are, my job is to get out of their way and let them fly. Inspect what I expect. In other words, I was always around, but I didn't want to control them. I didn't want to, I wanted them to have freedom to bring their skills to bear. And so that little saying is what helped me drive that through the organization, getting people to understand that if you bring great people in, and they're doing the work, then listen to them.
And Howard, where is that coming from? What was the importance for you behind that, putting that on the list that
I,
everybody got to
I
vote?
needed that. I mean, I needed to be able to uh, feel appreciated, given responsibility and authority to do the things. I needed that for me to be mentally healthy.
Oh, I
And so
see.
it came from my needs. And I assumed that other people had the same needs, and it proved to be true that they did, and they wanted that, and the people always appreciated that, and it made a difference in the productivity of the people in the organization because they felt appreciated. They felt like they were treated with respect and dignity, and that they were trusted. And that's how great organizations are built. It's exactly the way the great families are built, right? I mean,
Tell me more.
well, it's you get married or you have a significant other in your life, and the single most important thing in that relationship is trust. So, and without trust, you don't have a relationship. Without trust with your kids, you don't have a healthy relationship with them or with your spouse or significant other. And so, you can't control everything in a marriage, right? And because you have a partner that has ideas and has skill sets, and you have to learn to listen to them. It's just not about what you believe. It's also about what they believe. So it's the same in families. I mean, families or businesses or work or any organization, they're always built on trust. They're built on respect and dignity, and they're built on getting out of the way of people that you trust, helping them be all that they can be. And when you do that, then they want to do more for you. When your husband feels like you trust him, right? It makes a huge difference. And when you feel like he trusts you, there's a huge difference, right? We don't have to always be telling each other what to do.
Yes, yes. Checking in with myself. Do I trust him to do, to finish, to complete? Yes, that's a great reminder. I'm reflecting back as you're talking, and that's one of the practices that I do. Uh, I share it with and I do it with my kids too, with my son and my daughter. So yes. Now, I can hear and I know I experienced it myself that from the beginning that we met, I felt that trust and that got me to, keep meeting you because there was just something that you gave me that back then I didn't even know what that was. But it was that trust in myself. Now, I'm curious, once you laid that foundation and you as a leader, you told people that you are the one who's going to choose the broom. How do you then open up the opportunity, the discussion for them to grow and then to share with you things like, what they really want to do? What are the gaps, maybe skill gaps, capabilities gaps in where they want to go versus where they are right now? And, how did you guide someone like that?
Well, I'm a proponent of servant leadership. And the three basic tenets of servant leadership are these. Number one responsibility as a leader is to help your people grow as human beings, be all that they can be as a human being. So values, orientation, how they see themselves, how they treat others, etc. Then the second thing as a leader you have to do is help them grow as professionals. It's kind of coming into what you're talking about a little bit. And the third thing is to help them achieve their goals in life. And so that means that you have to have open communication. You have to ask questions and then you have to listen for the answers. And then you have discussions about it. And you ask for more. Tell me more about what you're thinking. Tell me more about what you're thinking you want to do. What skill sets do you think you're missing? And you ask questions. How do you think you can go about gaining those skill sets? And then the final question is, what do you need from me to help you achieve the things you want in life? Right? And then you have to listen to that answer, and then you have to do all you can do to help your people achieve their goals, to grow as human beings and to grow as professionals. And so, you have to be around. You have to have conversations. It's not You don't do an annual performance review, an annual review to find out how a person's feeling. It's going on all the time. It's again just like in a
Yeah.
family. It's you don't have annual performance reviews for your marriage. You're constantly having conversation and dialogue. How can we make this better? I ask my wife Lynn all the time, right? And she laughs now, but I say, "How are we doing?" I just ask her, "How are we doing?" And she knows what it means.
Yeah.
How are we feeling about our marriage? And when you do that, it makes a huge difference. So it's the same at work. How are we doing? How am I doing for you? Are you getting out of this relationship, or are you getting out of working here at Starbucks what you want and what you need?
Howard, tell me more about this one because when I meet with engineers and especially the young engineers who are just starting their career, this question frightens them. They're afraid to, well, they're afraid to answer. They're afraid to tell a leader who's asking this really what they think, and sometimes they are, because of that fear, they don't know how to answer is how can I help you?
Right.
So how do you help someone overcome that fear to really to really see the other person not just as a high level executive and then, be frightened, but to see that person as, well, you helped me see you, and then after that, everybody else as someone who's a servant leader who's taking the time and is asking because they really mean it.
Yeah, and that's what it's about. And it goes back to that word trust. People have to trust that you're honest with them. And I'm pushy there. I say, look, I always say there are no questions you can ask me or statements you're going to make that are going to embarrass me or hurt my feelings. Okay, you can say anything you want to me, and I will never burn you. If you say something in confidence to me, it's going to remain in confidence. So you have to build that kind of relationship and you have to talk about it in that way. And then you have to say, I really want to hear what you have to say. And then if the people are nervous, don't sit in back of a desk and ask these kind of questions. Do it, right in front of each other, two chairs facing each other. And so that there's not something between you and becomes a power imbalance, right? You don't want
Yes.
that to happen. And so it's just being, and then you can't never burn anybody. And over time, what happens, your reputation becomes of a trusted person. You can go to Howard, you can say anything you want, and it'll be okay with him. And once you develop that, then people are willing to open up to you. But at the beginning, sometimes it's more difficult. I'll relate a story to you. So when I first started at Starbucks, there were 28 stores. That's all. And I brought all the store managers in, and we had a couple of district managers that came in for my first, what I call a meeting, staff meeting.
Mhm.
And so the first thing I did, I asked three questions that I still ask today, believe it or not. What do you like about Starbucks? What don't you like about Starbucks? What should we change about Starbucks? And there was a fourth question. What should we continue? Which goes, what do you like?
Mhm.
And so I went around the room. We spent a whole day doing it. I still have my notes from that. It was 35 years ago. I still have my notes from that meeting. And people would talk up and some people wouldn't, and I told them, you can trust, it won't go out of this room, but we're gonna write things down, but no names attributed to it. So we were creating this list of all the things we wanted to continue, things we wanted to change, things we wanted to improve. At the end of that meeting, a guy came up to me that was at the meeting. He was a store manager, and his name was Peter. And he just looked at me and he said to me, Howard, if I'd have known you really wanted us to tell what we were thinking, I would have said more at the meeting. And I looked at him and I said, Peter, one thing you can depend on me is that when I say something, it will be the truth, right? I won't tell you something and then not live up to it. What I tell you, you can depend on me. And so we're going to start that relationship. And I said, so what do you have to say? And I made special time for him. But yeah, because people are raised the opposite way. They're afraid.
Yes.
And I always believe I wanted my people to turn their fears into faith, right? You know,
Howard, I'm curious, where is that coming from? I guess, how did you learn the importance of that, of being that leader, of asking those questions, of valuing that?
I was interested. I'm curious. I like to know about other people. I was interested in who they were and where they were going. I really, truly was. And I still am. I mean, it's the questions I ask today of people. When I talk with people, I ask, where are you going? What are your values? What is it you're trying to do in life? And so you got to be curious and you got to be caring. You got to respect people and you got to kind of love people. And so that's where it came from with me. It's who I am. It's my core.
Mm.
It's the core of who I am. So I have a mission statement that goes like this. I try to live up to it every day. Every day, I want to nurture and inspire the human spirit, beginning with myself first and then for others. The reason why I say self first is after living as long as I have, I understand that if I'm not okay with me, it's very difficult to help somebody else. So I want to nurture and inspire the human spirit. The only way I know to do that is to listen to them, to care about them, to be honestly curious about who they are and what they want out of their lives. And when you do that, it's amazing how people will open up.
I witnessed that. I experienced that myself. And I'm thinking that, and this is why I wanted to bring you on the podcast to share this with the leaders who are, let's say, on the fence.
Yeah.
They haven't chosen their heads yet. They haven't chosen who they want to be as leaders yet. And now I remember that, somebody comes into my mind who I worked with, who for several years he was going to be promoted into a director role. So for several years in leadership, he had, let's say, the opposite kind of leaders, and he thought that for him to become a director, he has to continue. So his role models were totally the opposite of what you're saying. Like that's what he knew. So when we started working, it was a struggle at the beginning to really find who he was. So as you're thinking back to the people that you worked with, those who, you know, never had a role model, never had a Howard, never they haven't yet, let me put it that way, heard about these concepts because of others. Where would you encourage them to start and how to start on this journey?
Well, number one, you have to know yourself. Number one thing you have to do is figure out who you are. So I'll show you a document that I've had for 55, almost, 55 years. And it's a picture of Howard in 50 words or less. You can't read anything on here, I know, but what's on this document is my mission statement, my core values, my 8 core values, and then what I call my 6 Ps, how I do everything in my life. And this is Howard. And I evaluate my performance based on my ability to live up to these things that I have on this document. And so you have to do that kind of work. You go on the internet and you look and you say human values, and there'll be a list of 300 words that represent human values, one
Yes.
form or another. And your goal is to get it down to 8 to 10 core ones. These are the ones, no matter what happens in your life, you live with these. It doesn't mean there aren't 50 or 100 more words that might reflect you in some way or another. But you really need, and then you need to write it down, and then you need to define what they mean to me. So my first core value is honesty. Well, what does honesty mean to me? It means that I'm authentic. What you see is what you get. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. It may not be your answer you want, or it may not be,
Yeah.
it's my truth, not necessarily yours, but that's okay. You can you can challenge that, but you have to be straight up. So honesty to me is always being straight up, no hiding, no excuses, no nothing. Just be you. And somebody asks you something, or you agree to do something, you're honest about it. And so those things drive my life. And there's an old saying: if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you.
Yeah.
Will get you there. And so I believe in living your life with intention. So in order to live your life with intention, you have to decide who you are, or who you want to be. And then all your efforts and energies go towards making that a reality. And so that's what this is all about. So in order to change or to be all that you can be, you need to understand who you are, and that takes work.
Yeah.
It's not easy to get 8 to 10 core values that no matter what matters. See, values, they're just words until they turn into actions or decisions.
I'm happy you said that. I'm happy you said that.
Because otherwise, they're just a word.
Yes.
Honesty is just a word until I decide what does that mean to me? How does it inform the actions or the decisions I take or make in my life? And it's I have another saying. You have to be able to wear one hat in your life. In other words, it's the hat that you identify with. And what I mean by hat, it's not the roles that we play, not mother, father,
Yeah.
wife. It's the hat that we wear that defines who we are and represents who we are as a human being. And it has to be written down. If you don't write this stuff down, it's just wishes, hopes, and dreams. You have to have the ability to hold yourself accountable. And so that's what it's about, and that's where all that stuff comes from. And it's helped me, I think, live a more fulfilling life because it took me a while. I mean, I didn't know this when I was in my, really, it was in my mid 20s when I really started to do this work, and it was important work, and it made such a huge difference in my life. You know, First of all, I would share this with everybody.
That was
So
my next question.
I didn't
Once
keep it
you
to
write it
myself.
down, do you share it?
So people knew what to expect from me and could hold me accountable,
Yes.
right? That meant I was going to be vulnerable, right?
Yes.
And live up to my values or my 6 P's, or my mission statement. People had the right to hold me accountable because this is who I told them I was and how I'd act.
Do you remember an occasion when someone did hold you accountable who
Yeah,
you did?
all the time. Yeah, absolutely, all the time. I mean, I'm an emotional guy and I can get carried away. I don't live up to my mission of treating people with respect, and sometimes, and one time I got mad over something, right, that somebody had not done or said they were going to do, and instead of treating with love and respect, holding them accountable, but treating with love and respect, I got mad, and they said, "But Howard, this is who you said you were, and this is not reflective of that." That's happened more than once, dozens of times, because I'm not a perfect human being.
Those are the people who really also cared about you. Now I can,
They cared about me, but they cared about themselves too.
well,
Really,
yes. Well, we're
just
learning
so
together, right? It's that
yeah, yeah,
it's so much, I believe, so much easier to work together, to be together, to grow together. And this is an example of how we can grow together uh, and help each other in that growth and make it fun. Because I also see the the fun part. I have friends who hold me accountable as well, and it comes to a point after you pass that uncomfortable feeling of it's that when they say it's I'm happy. So it's in a way comfortable. I'm happy that they said something because now they pointed out a blind spot, my blind spot, and now I get to choose to do something about it.
yes,
So,
exactly. I grow because of it,
yes,
but you have to own it. When you screw up, you got to own it.
yes. Well, what about this other one? And maybe tell us more about this other saying, only the truth sounds like the truth. Where is this one coming from?
Okay, so when I first time I ever became an officer of a public company, I was president of a public company, and I became president, and the company was in more trouble than I thought it was, and I knew I was going to have to make some decisions and take some action. So I got my leadership team together, and I said we've got to cut costs some way, and we devised a plan on how we were going to cut costs. And it wasn't going to be fun, but it needed to be done. And so the head of human resources, this is before computers, the head of human resources took that plan, and it was all my assistant had typed it all out on an IBM Selectric and took it to the copier and was making copies for everybody so that we'd all have a copy of the plan. And she left the original on the copier. This was on a Friday afternoon. So somebody saw it there and took it and started making calls all around the company, right? And everybody was getting concerned. So by about 9 or 10 at night, I was getting one call after another. And I said, oh, we got a problem now. And so I called my team together for Saturday morning. I said, we have a problem. Here's what happened. And I asked everybody, what should we do? And I went around the room and asked every person one at a time. And the majority opinion was, well, just deny it. Just say we're not, it's just something we're thinking about it. Don't worry about it. Not going to happen. But that was not the truth. So my administrative assistant, her name was Lori Christmas, she poked me on the shoulder. She said, Howard, only the truth sounds like the truth. Only the truth sounds like the truth. And I just looked at her and I just said, Lori, you're right. So that next Monday morning, I called the whole company together and I laid out the whole thing. I said, here's what we're talking about doing. I don't know who's going to get laid off yet, but I promise you by the end of the week, everybody will know and we won't keep any secrets from you. And so I thought that I was going to get my lunch handed to me. I thought I'd be the shortest tenured president ever at this company because I screwed up. But one person stood up in the meeting, a young guy, and he said, Howard, I don't know if I'm going to be one of the ones that gets laid off, but I want to thank you for telling us the truth. And I will help you and the organization get through this, even if I am one of the ones that gets laid off. One by one, everybody in the room stood up and raised their hand and committed to helping to make it happen. It was such a valuable lesson for me. Just tell the truth. Don't hide. Don't hide it. Doesn't mean you have to scare everybody, all the time. But when you know you're going to do something, don't lie to your people. They know it. They know when
Yes.
you're. And so that's where that came from. Lori Christmas, only the truth sounds like the truth. And she is so right.
Wow. Again, having somebody who can say that to a leader, to a president, again, uh, so valuable. You you
Well,
inspire
you need it, you know.
you inspired her for her to have the courage to say that. That's what comes up for me.
There was tremendous trust between us. And
Yes.
I listened. I want to know. I wanted to know. You know, I don't not want to know. I want to know. If I'm screwing up, if I'm not in where I need to be, then I want somebody to tell me. Look, I want to be better at what I do. I don't have all the answers. I'm 80 years old. I'm learning all the time. You know, I'm still growing.
And I want to share that us working together, that's one of the wisdoms that I took away and took it into my career and into Boeing and when I was building my corporate career there. And I used it as well, where I was working with a high level executive and I was in that same situation as Lori you're talking about, to tell her that only the truth sounds like the truth. And it was it was a scary moment. So as you're listening and maybe you're in a situation like this, it definitely comes with lots of scary feelings and fears. Um, but go for it, step into it, because as Howard said, even an executive, a president, CEO, another human being wants to be better. And we can help someone get better by really, I call it speaking from the heart. Because we know humans, when someone tells us the truth and it tells and that person says it from the heart. So they really mean it because they really care about us and they trust that we're gonna listen. It made a difference in my life, in that executive's life. So I encourage you, if you're listening, to go for it.
Absolutely. It requires you to be vulnerable. It requires you to be able to put your stuff away and to really truly listen, right? Really truly listen with your not just with your ears, but with your eyes, with your You're those little antenna that we can't see, but that we all have, and be truly listening to others and care about what they're saying.
And I think that is one of the other messages from the book that I have learned, those leadership principles of how to put myself sometimes, out of the room, on the chair, my thoughts, and really think about what the other person would want now, would need now, and not what how I see the solution for them. And this is something that engineers, as they, this is my experience, so those who are listening, as you grow up to become an engineer and you graduate, it's not in the curricula. You learn to problem solve, yes, but not for humans, not for the human problems.
Yeah.
Um, so, Howard, for those who, again, want to learn this, how would you encourage them? What's the first step that you would offer them to try out, to put
Well,
themselves aside, their ego, and see somebody else for who they are?
well, it's it's not always easy, and particularly if you haven't learned the skills or really developed the skills. But it's the understanding that there's nothing that any of us will do in life. Not any. I don't care what kind of engineer. If you're an electrical engineer, whatever kind of engineer you are, you know, uh, in life, it's always about serving somebody. And so, no matter what role we have in life, what job description we have, what our title is, etc., there's only one reason any of us are put on this earth, and that's to serve other people. And so, I think the key is figuring out what in your role in the organization, how do you serve others, right? And how do you serve others in the best way possible? Well, the only way you can find that out is by asking others.
Yes, as simple as that. You're right.
Ask, are you getting from me what you need? Right? Am I living up to your expectations? How can I support you better? Right? It's a huge difference than just here's my work, take it or leave it, or whatever. I mean, it's really understanding that it's always about serving others, and everything in life is about human relationships. There's nothing we do in life that isn't about serving others in human relationships. It doesn't make a difference what you do. Even about serving yourself, the relationship of yourself to yourself, kind of an interesting concept. So I have this board of directors that sits on my shoulders, and they're talking to me all the time, trying to influence the decisions I make and the actions I take in life. Some of them are not so good, and they're not so kind, and some of them are egotistical, some are humble, but they're always talking to me, trying to get me to do something. And so I've had to learn how to manage them, right? So the organization of self, that's number one area. And then that informs, how you treat others. And the total or the organization, once you become, you know, let's say you're starting a company, and once you hire somebody, now it's about the people. It's not about the product you're selling or the service you're providing. It's about what you do, how it serves others. And when you come with that mentality, right, it changes the whole relationship between yourself and other people. We've all, any prior audience, I don't know how old most of them, but if you're a little bit older, all of them or all of you have experienced what I call the autocratic boss, the one that that they tell you what to do, how to do it, and they don't think that you're capable.
Yep.
And if you do something that they think is wrong, they abuse you in dozens of ways. Yell or scream at you, or just ignore you, or frown at you, or do something that makes you belittles you.
Yes.
And we've all known people like that. And that's not what we want to be like because that doesn't move an organization forward. I think a great example of that, I don't know if you have a bunch of Microsoft users that listen to your podcast, but you remember the old days when Ballmer and Gates, if you brought a solution to them and they didn't like it and they thought it was dumb, they'd call you dumb and stupid. They would use abusive words. And then what happened? And what happened to that company? It slowly but surely deteriorated, right? Until the stock didn't move anywhere. They weren't getting stuff done. And the new guy comes in and becomes a CEO. And what does he say? He says the single most important skill any leader needs to have is empathy. What a difference. And now look at Microsoft, one of the most valuable companies, if not the most valuable company in the world. And people want to work there, you know? And so those things make a difference.
Wow. Thank you for saying that. I think it's important that, and this is why I invite guests and guests like you, so that we hear these concepts. Because I am a believer of not everybody hears these concepts. Just because you know something, it's not common knowledge. So sharing it, talking about it, conversing about it, it's very important in my view. So thank you very much for sharing. And let me double click on something because you sparked my curiosity. It's that the board that sits on your shoulder, you said you had to learn to silence it, to manage it. So tell us briefly, what does that mean for you?
Well, I have 6 or 7 board members, and they all have a different opinion and a different attitude about life. Some, okay, here's a story for you. So I was the chair, a leadership chair at the University of Washington School of Business for a year. And so I was on that campus all the time. And I used to get these parking passes. I'd buy them 10 for $100. I could park anywhere on campus. There was no parkings.
Mhm.
Right? So you'd have take that card, and I had them in my glove box, and I'd pull one out, and I'd have to put the date down and the day, and sign my name. So, and but I didn't have one day. I didn't have ink. I didn't have a pen. All I had was a pencil. And I thought, well, that'll be okay. I'll just do it really dark. Just remember, my first core value is honesty. So I took that and I put it on my dashboard, right? And that was great. Then the next day I came back again. And I said, geez, one of my board members said, Howard, you give a lot of money to the UW. They won't mind if you just use that parking pass again. You can erase and just change the date because it was in pencil. Honest to God, that was about a 5-second conversation with myself. But that's what one of my board members was telling me. You give a lot of money to the UW, they won't mind. First core value is honesty. And then another board member stepped in and said, Howard, honesty. It's your first core value. Is that honest? And I just ripped that up. So you see, I mean, everybody, can succumb to that. And those different board members are trying to influence us in different ways. Not always so good or healthy.
Yes. Wow, it's fascinating to hear you speak about it, and it's one of those, being aware that these board members are sitting on our shoulders, being aware that these thoughts are not necessarily us, they're not necessarily my thought, and it's that you have to own it, and they're serving you. I think that's
They're part of you. They're there. And, what I have found is you can't reject them outright, right? You have to say, I don't have time to listen to you right now and move on. Because when you reject outright, they come back with a vengeance, right? And
that's
it's,
right.
it's a crazy thing, but for all your listeners, if you just think about it for a minute, you're having all this self-talk that's going on right now. So what is that self-talk saying to you? Hey, this is busy, or I don't agree with them, or I do agree. Whatever it is that self-talk is going on, they're trying to influence how you respond to what I'm saying.
Yes. Yes, we all have those board members and those talks in our ears. And thank you for sharing that you have them too.
Well,
I I confess that I have them too. And just recently, my story was that a friend invited me to go play tennis, and I was late due to traffic. And the receptionist just checked my name and told me where to go. I didn't have the process would have been I check in, I pay, and then I go. But because I was so late, I was kind of nervous, and she understood. So it was kind of an agreement of you'll pay afterwards. So afterwards, I go to the desk and I ask her, okay, I'm here. I'm, ready to pay. She looked me up and said, oh, everything is okay. It's all taken care of. And, my little voice said, okay, then just walk away. Everything is okay. And my my value said, no, 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 no. You have to double check, be curious, what's going on here. This is the first time I was there, so I wanted to know. And turns out that if I would have not said something, she would have billed it to another Andrea who was in the system. So I felt, again, like tearing the paper, and I felt, okay, this is still my value. This is important for me. I'm going to pay for my part, no matter if I'm late or not. I made the commitment. I'm going to do it. So yes, the message here is we all have these board members, these voices in our heads. And I love what you said about silencing them and not um, denying them, because they're going to come back. So find a way to listen to them, and then tell them that is not what you want to do. That is not your value. That you choose differently, I call it.
The single most difficult person you will ever have to lead in your life is you. Well, it is. It's true.
Yes. Yes.
And it's difficult to do, but it's the key.
One of the things that inspires me in you, that knowing that I am the most difficult, and let me back up. You're giving me the gift to know that I will be the most difficult person who I'm going to deal with in in my career, in my life. That awareness helped me tremendously to then, what you said, to then be curious, to then go and find tools, to then, find mentors, you and others, find tools, read books, to pretty much figure it out, so that I had a chance. I had a chance to choose to not be that person who doesn't care, to not be that person who doesn't know their values. You gave me the opportunity to choose myself at an early age, early as of in my career, because I wasn't, I didn't have a, I don't know, normal standard career. No, this is before career, educational path. So I was older when I met you, when I graduated, due to where I'm from and my life story. But what I valued in meeting you, and the message that I wanna tell those who are listening, is the earlier you start, and you don't have to start alone. That's another one. The earlier you start, the earlier you find someone to guide you, the more blessings you're gonna get in life, the more friends you're gonna get in life, the more you're gonna laugh and smile and love your life, which
I agree.
for me it's
You're
very
going to have a
important.
fulfilling life,
Say it again.
or you're going to have a fulfilling life when you do. And
Yes.
remember, the people that help you, they don't have to be senior in your organization.
No.
They can be junior. It can be friends. Anybody can help you grow. I mean, some of the best mentoring I've had is from my grandchildren. Yeah,
Yes, yes, I'm with you. For me, my children right now, and yes, yes, yeah. It's the point is, you don't have to do it alone, and don't make it a big deal out of it that you have to find someone at a high level who's, president, CEO, whoever, very, unreachable. For me, the blessing was that you were there when I met you. It wasn't a I'm gonna search and seek, and it was in the moment you showed up for me, and what I had to do is be myself and ask you all the values that you talked about. Ask for that, for in that case that day, for the support. And I'm sharing that because I hear so many young people who are afraid to ask for what they want, ask people to support them. But I want to break, if I can, break that myth, break that fear, and tell them just go for it, because the benefits of getting a yes are amazing. So go for that yes, no matter how many no's you're gonna get. And the hint is you're probably gonna get the yes the first time because you're gonna dare to ask.
Exactly. That's how it works in life. Get a no or whatever, you keep at it. Persistence pays.
Yes, yes. Well, Howard, as we're getting to the end of the podcast, I like to give the mic back to my guests. The last time, to give them the opportunity to close us out, to choose, to give them the choice to leave us with something that we want to walk away with. So I'd like to do the same today. What would you like us to leave with?
Well, I can't overemphasize how important it is to figure out who you are and what you stand for and to write it down. Remember, you can write it in pencil, you can erase and change it anytime you want, right? But you gotta write down what your values, you gotta describe what those values mean to you. You gotta have a personal mission statement. You're like, why are you put on this earth? What are you here to do? What are you trying to accomplish? You know, I said, I think at the beginning, you want to live your life with intention. You want to be able to look back at your life when you get to be my age and hopefully sooner. Look, you always want to be checking. Are you living your life with the intention that you have about your life? And you got to be always asking yourself that question. How am I doing? How am I doing? And because you want to be, when you're 80 like me, you want to be able to look back at your life and say, how did I do? And was I perfect? No. And it took me a long time to find myself. I was in my mid to late 20s when I finally found, really. And then I kept growing from there. That's when I got introduced to servant leadership. Really, I kind of was a unconscious competent in terms of servant leadership, and I decided I want to be a conscious competent in terms of servant leadership. In other words, I wanted to know what it was and how to teach it. So, write it down, and then you ought to have you need to have goals for your life. You ought to have a plan, a 1, 3, and 5 year plan. What are you trying to accomplish in your life? And it's best to do it with your significant other or your partner in life, right? And find out what they want as well on their. And so you have a little planning session and you have the headings that you have, whatever your headings want to be. Mine are spirituality, material, economic well-being, personal growth, health, knowledge, uh, vacations, trip places I'd like to visit, my marriage, my children, my grandchildren. I have goals under each of those, and so I still do it. I'm 80 years old. I still have a 5 year plan, and that's getting pretty optimistic if I can still have a 5 year plan at 80. But I want to be when it's time for me to leave this earth, I want to know that I'm still doing something, working on something.
Yes. Well, you're still here. So let me just
Yeah.
say that. And we are so grateful that you are here. And 5 year plans are going to keep you here for 5 more years. And that's the power of anticipating on having something that we look forward to. So no matter how old you are, make that plan, use that, tap into that energy, that psychological energy, and use it. It's your power. We all have access to it. So I'm happy that you have a plan. I'm happy that you have all these people to be part of your plan, because it's one of my plans in life to have people part of my life. So it's wonderful to hear that you have them, and I can see the circle of you talked a lot about trust today. So trust in yourself, others will trust you. you're an example of people trusting you. They still want to be in your life and be part of your plan. On that note, thank you very much for being here, Howard. It has been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, for the opportunity.